Coming up, we start to explore the wide open spaces in the northwest of Namibia. A welcome change from getting stuck in rivers, pounded by storms, and flash flooded out of campsites. Wow! Angry water. Fresh out of the rooftop tent, and somewhat blurry-eyed, I pick up the story the morning after the flood, having climbed up to the top of this mountain range to escape the river and another brewing storm. It's a beautiful night's sleep last night, nice and cool, not cold, just a little bit cool, nice and quiet. Just watching the sun coming up over there. Puros is sort of in between those mountains down there. I could see thunder, I could hear thunder and lightning last night. So yeah, at least I made the little trip up here, so a lot less dramatic, much better for sleeping. So if you're looking for a campsite in Namibia, I can highly recommend the side of the road here. Got your own mountain to take care of you during the night, and in my case the mosquitoes, all the other bugs that the Land Rover picked up down by the river are fairly confused, it's fair to say. They're all buzzing around saying, where's the river, where's the water, where's the trees? So they'll be gone, which is one of the reasons why camping in the desert's so nice. Adjusting my beautiful hair, which of course has been coiffured professionally this morning. So the plan is to head basically north along this what's called a D road. It's just very recently upgraded actually with a grader. It used to be no more than a track really, and they've come through with a grader and sealed it off. So we're going to head up there to a small tiny little dot. I mean, you thought Puros was small. This is basically a shop which is smaller than the Land Rover. And we've got a major river up there, and we're going to see if we can get across the river or not. We woke up here, just north of the small village of Puros in Namibia, and with all the time in the world given us stuck in the country for the first year of the pandemic, we will head up north for a bit of gentle exploring. I say gentle, as coolant was weeping out of the engine in numerous places, as well as oil seeping out of the bottom. Not gushing or dripping, but bubbling and seeping persistently, a never-ending worry that one of them would burst open properly. This was due to many of the aluminium bolt threads on my 30-year-old engine being corroded away, and thus difficult to tighten correctly. Normally you would fix the threads to prevent this from happening, obviously, but as seen in episode 3, I'd been changing a timing belt and water pump in the capital city when it was announced that a lockdown was about to start. So it'd been a case of whacking the engine back together quickly and getting out of the lockdown zone and hoping for the best with careful monitoring of the temperature gauge. So the aim was a nice Sunday afternoon style drive, taking in the desert scenery and avoiding any crazy sand dunes or rock climbs for now. Somehow I always follow the most remote and interesting looking tracks no matter what I tell myself. But this time, I was definitely going to be good for a change. My life depended on being so, even more than usual given the country was in lockdown, and I wasn't expecting any other traffic out here for months. So at the moment we're on this newly graded sort of D road. It used to be a very bad track. Now they've made it pretty good actually. I tend to still just putt along slowly in third gear, just because there's always sort of every 5 kilometers there's one rock or one hole or something that will catch you out if you go too fast. That rock can be just sort of 1 inch above the rest, can have a razor sharp edge on it, and I just lost a tyre on my last trip because of one of those, just cut a massive chunk out. And also I'm here to just look at the scenery and take life easy. Yeah, and I love the scenery. It looks, it is featureless, it is barren, but every rock's a slightly different colour. In the morning and in the evening, the sun changes the colour of everything, different shadows. So if I come over here, you can see the old road. It would literally, 10 kilometers an hour type stuff, whereas here you can really get through. It's a bit hot in the middle of the day, but other than that, it's lovely for camping. Generally the wind just disappears overnight. It's incredibly calm. Oh no, couldn't be happier so far. My avoid corona plan is going fairly well. A few hiccups, but compared to have been stuck for a month at home inside, this is pretty good. Now, don't panic, I'm not actually out of fuel. My fuel gauge stopped working. I've never found it very reliable since I put an extension tank in anyway. So now I just drive on the kilometers here. I'm mostly just checking on the temperature gauge and the oil gauge to make sure everything's alright. So just in the distance starting to see the sand dunes, or at least sand around rock, and then it turns into sand of the Skeleton Coast. The name Skeleton Coast refers to the Atlantic Ocean coastline of the desert, including its famous stretches of sand dunes that plunge into the ocean. The name apparently referred to the bones left on the beaches from the early whale and seal hunting industry, but could equally be referring to the hundreds that have lost their lives in sea conditions, sometimes so treacherous that Namibians described the area as the land God made in anger, and Portuguese sailors referred to it as the gates of hell. We will explore the coastline in depth in a couple of later series, but for now, let's stick to the beauty of the inland desert. I'm enjoying the drive so far. It's nice to be moving and still relatively cool at this time of the day. The road's not bad. Third gear, putting along. Life seems pretty good. It's a bit hard to not have sunglasses on, I'm sorry. I know you'd like to, it's always nicer to see someone's eyes and, judge their reactions and body language much easier. But out here the sun's obviously so harsh that your eyes get very tired, very dry. If you don't have sunglasses on, you sort of end up squinting the whole time. So apologies for the sunglasses always been on. It's just a fact of life for making this type of film. An important part of travelling like this is constantly weighing up all of the risks, such as a seeping engine, and trying to make sensible route planning decisions around them. I've reached the turn-off. Now I can go to the right and follow the sort of new main road. So it's a bit of a dilemma really. I'd love to take the road to the left. Just looking at my map, it's much more interesting. I think I haven't taken it before. I've driven this road. In the next 3 or 4 weeks, there's probably 0 cars that'll be taking this road along here. So if I have any problems, it would be fairly serious. So I'd love to take this route on the left here. It's a road I haven't taken. I think it's a lot more sandy from what I'm told. But I just haven't got enough diesel to risk it at this stage. So we'll stick to the main road for now. Really beautiful part of the road here. The road's a little bit smoother, Nice colours to it, beautiful open valley.
Can I tell you what's been on my mind? Sick and tired of the 9 to 5 in the city life. Hey darling, we could get out of town, see the beautiful world around, wanna see it now. Pack our bags and get in that car, leave a little note and we'll drive real far. Let's get out, we can leave this city. Let's drive to the open air. Yeah, the countryside is so pretty, with the wind blowing in your hair. We can look back someday. Baby, don't you understand that we only get one life? I wanna make it count, honey. Come on now and take my hand. Hey darling, I love it when it's me and you.
Yeehaw! This is great fun. The road's fairly smooth up on this slight ridge, and the scenery is just amazing. Just fantastic, eh? Just lovely. I've been a little bit too As the world had now effectively stopped, at least physically, I had a great sense of being alone in this vast area, like nobody would ever come again, and time itself had been suspended indefinitely. It was nice to float along, taking in the scenery and not having to rush to any particular destination or schedule. One of the nicest things about this area is you can respectfully camp anywhere, so you just stop when you're ready. No stressing to get somewhere before it's dark. It's one of my favourite places in the whole of Africa because of this freedom and its natural beauty. Okay, so we're going to follow the road across the riverbed, which should be dry, I believe, which is good news, and along the valley. So I think my routine is to get up early, try and get as much filming done early in the morning. The sun's not quite so bad now at 10:30. Well, good news, this riverbed's as dry as a bone. Not a bean, not a sausage, certainly not a drop of sauce or water, so that's easy. It's quite a substantial riverbed, so just looking at all the channels. See, I mean, when it comes down, it can certainly come down in large quantities, that's obvious. Anyway, that's one minor obstacle out of the way. No great drama. So this gravel road looks pretty good, so I think I might put my foot down and crank up the music a bit. Wow, 4th gear! Woohoo! As you can see, I was enjoying the day. Fantastic scenery. Nothing but the open road. Mighty Landy. Where we've come from, eh? Amazing mountains are all around. Right. Plenty of water needed. So this is the other end of the detour I would have liked to have taken. Looks like it comes through a beautiful valley there, but I can see a lot of sand on the bottom. The other hills off to the right of that also look pretty sandy, so I think this is sort of where the rock starts to finish and the sand of the skeleton coast starts to take over. So we're facing the wind. It's I think coming from the Atlantic Ocean. It's got a slight whiff of salt in it, slight coolness like ocean air. In these very early films, I mounted one of the cameras directly onto the dashboard, which vibrates a lot, so apologies that these shots are extremely shaky. I later mounted it to the windscreen with a suction cup, and its rubber mountings dampened the vibrations really well. Just stop for a minute because of all things we've actually got some clouds, and it's possible to stop under a cloud and have a little bit of shade, which is quite pleasant. But also I like the way these mountains looked with the sun on them and the cloud and the shadows. It's quite interesting. So it's very hard to film desert scenery, I find, because it's not often one point to focus on that's fascinating or interesting and is going to sort of get you go, wow, incredible. It's a sort of sum total of lots of little parts, and just the atmosphere and the heat and the dryness and the solitude, and it's hard to capture. I don't know how to do it. And of course there's not so much to actually commentate on. Anyway, we'll get there. It's all practice. I'm enjoying the experience. You probably also can't see a big tree. I normally find a big tree for lunch with some shade. Check there's no sort of snakes and things like that. Take your risk with spiders dropping on your head, which can happen. Out here, I don't think we're going to find a big tree for a while. Anyway, until further notice, let it be recorded. I'm happy and enjoying myself. Hoping for no mechanical breakdowns. Love if I could get a bit more diesel along the way, but other than that, everything is pretty good, eh? Having invested a lot of time in Puros to figure out the basics of my new camera gear, it's a really nice feeling to be out on the road and building a sense of intrigue as I started to take a few reasonable shots. What would I be able to produce from them all? I grew up in rural New Zealand with only 2 TV channels to choose from. If the weather was good, and Cyclone Bowler hadn't blown the TV aerial away. So the odd travel programme and BBC nature documentaries were my only window to the outside world. It was exciting to feel like I was out making my own version of one of these, albeit with no budget, experience or 2 support vehicles and a medical team following me along. The other memory I have that stimulated my interest in travel is being fascinated with the Reader's Digest World Atlas my grandparents had. It was a huge heavy book, and with each page turn, gave more fascinating names of exotic places like Moli Paloli, Bobo Dioulasso, and Ouagadougou. Even more interesting was how every country had weird little bits to them that nobody seemed to live in. I wondered why. So I always travel with that spirit of me as a kid, looking in awe at maps of unimaginable places, and feeling amazed that I've been to so many of them, and happy that my grandparents would be a little bit proud if they knew. Okay, so more good news. Our second riverbed of the day, and she's absolutely bone dry by the looks. Apologies for the colours on the windscreen, by the way. I applied a plastic coating to the windows so they can't easily be smashed, but when using a sun filter on the lens, it produces that weird banding which I couldn't see at the time. A few trickles of water down this riverbed recently by the looks, but nothing major. You'll see by some of the tyre tracks in front of us, just a little bit of water. It's a long, steep climb up the other side of the valley. I think I'm going to become world famous on YouTube for stating the obvious. I'm in the desert, it's hot, there's no trees, there's lots of rocks, they're all slightly different. I'm thirsty, there's no water. That said, it was a swift pleasure to hoon along the smooth track at 50 kilometers an hour with the windows down and a sense of freedom blowing in through them.
Yesterday, there was sun and there was rain, beauty in the mundane.
How's the view out of the passenger window? Are you enjoying the drive so far? Leave a comment either way. Temperature's getting up, over 100. It's been one long, slow sort of climb on this gravel. Been blasting along, having a good time, to be honest. But the last sort of, at least 20 kilometers, we're up a gradual hill, and we're going down a slight hill, so I'm just letting everything cool down a little bit. And also, I'm not in a hurry, I don't have to blast along. I've actually got nowhere to go today, no destination. We're just going to be camping out in the desert somewhere, so wherever that spot is will depend on what time of the day it is. I pulled up for a quick reminder that I was in for a rare pleasure today. I could go on a shopping spree in the desert at Orapembe Shop 1. The shop is 1 kilometer and 46 meters. Soon enough, I had the police station in Orapembe in sight. The kind of station where you wonder what they did to get posted way out here. I called in and had a quick chat, and then it was on to the only other attraction in town, if I could first get past their crack security team. Luckily, the Landy and I passed muster, so we were free to spend our pocket money in the world famous in Orapembe Shop 1. I always stop and buy a few things in places like this, even if not needed, as it's good to put money into the local economy. I think the biggest benefit of vehicle-based tourism is that we do spend time in smaller remote places, and it gives these communities the opportunity to benefit. Altogether, I spent about 450,000 Namibian dollars in the country during the year I spent here. If I'd known at the start I was going to be so long, I would have just gone to the coast and bought a cheap house instead. Orapembe seems to exist as there is a small but reliable natural spring eking out of the side of the mountain. But as there are women and kids washing next to it, I didn't film in that direction, sorry. Not much seems to have changed since I took these photos in 2010. To the east are some mountains with a sprinkling of settlements. To the west, it's unpopulated open plains heading down towards the sand dunes of the coast. As I was going north, I had to decide if my route was through or around the mountains. Righto, that's definitely enough big city living for one day. The bright lights could lead a boy astray. Let's get back out into the desert for some lunch. The sign at the turn-off west seemed like a good place to stop, in the absence of a big tree. Alright, great success at the shop. They were open. They were a bit suspicious. They asked me if I had corona, and I explained I'd been in Puros for almost 2 weeks and Namibia a month, so I was probably okay, but they were a bit nervous, which is perfectly fine. And yeah, no cold drinks. The fridge was in pieces and definitely not working. But they did have a stock of Fanta and Coke and bags of pasta. In the meantime, it's a quick spot of lunch. We've got barbecue, braai flavoured baked beans, which are actually quite nice. They have green peppers and a bit of tang and spice to it. So sorry about the audio, and the fact, sorry about the video. I'm assuming it's picking up the sky rather than me, but that's life. Can't see them with this camera, it's too wide, but over here we've got a couple of offices. There are sparse populations of animals in the wider area. It's common to see ostriches, giraffe, springboks, even the odd leopard and cheetah if you're very stealthy. Well, the baked beans were absolutely average, a little bit warm, so I forgot my best trick with canned food is often to put it in the fridge. If you're going to have it for lunch the next day, cold baked beans or cold sweet corn is actually very tasty in the desert in the middle of the day when it's 40 degrees. And I've made the decision we're going to take the more westerly route around the mountains. It's maybe twice as long, but it's only an extra 50 kilometers. It's a little bit more desolate, but yeah, I think it's more interesting than taking the mountain pass with the terrible rocks. So let's crack on. We'll get maybe to Red Drum, well, probably tomorrow morning. We don't want to push it today. So yeah, let's get out of this wind. So in the howling gale, I took the decision to head west, out onto the desolate plains of the Skeleton Coast. But not before checking the engine leaks again carefully. I was quite worried about them. But thankfully, at this stage, they weren't worrying back at me too much. But would they cope with what was up next?